Hey guys, welcome to the Whimsical Workshop. We are on month 9 of the Imagine quilt, so let's get started. Yay! Alright, it's been a little while, at least for me, it feels like a while since I've filmed a video. This is all about month 9, which is Smile. This is the Smile block we're going to be focusing on today, as well as the bonus project, which is a tool roll. I made mine with the pockets big enough to hold a rotary cutter, scissors, some pens, some marking tools. I'm going to show you how to make this guy today. So let's get started. First of all, every month I need to talk about what this Imagine quilt came from and what we're doing with it. A local shop, MulQueen Sewing, asked us to design a quilt to go with their Aurifil Thread Collector Club. Every month you get a box of 3 large spools of 50 weight cotton from Aurifil that I have curated the colors to all work together. So at the end of the year you get 36 of these beautiful colors, but I also picked colors that work really well to build a foundation of Aurifil threads in your collection. For this month, the colors coordinate with obviously the block. So we have a beautiful cranberry red. We have a lovely raspberry. I know I say it every month, but this is my favorite color to use for piecing. I use it for applique when I do the raw edge applique with pastels or primitive colors. The gray just sort of blends into everything. One of the few times I don't use it for piecing is if I have white in my fabrics. Then I will jump over to a white for piecing. But this month it matched the block, so you can use it for the quilting. I'm also using this for the piecing through everything, and then I did use it for the embellishment on the roll. Here is our Smile block. Again, as I say every month, refer back to video 1, all about how to do the applique and the raw edges. You're going to want to get your block to this point. And then these are the colors I used to do the stitching. The gray, again, I used for piecing, and I will use it for quilting on this block. But for the edges, I used this raspberry pink on all of the really bright pink hearts. And then I used the cranberry red on the words and the other 2 color hearts. So we just used the 2 colors this month to finish our edges. And now that we have our Smile block done, we need to do the borders. So the borders are going to look like this. I've gone ahead and made the borders. They look like this, and they look like this. Now, there we go. So they look just like that. Now note, sometimes my patterns go all the way around. This time the patterns go red, light red, red, light red, 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 light red, red. So these 2 are the same in each corner, creating like this little box finish on the block. I really like doing that sometimes. So obviously these are all done with flying geese. So I'm going to move this up out of our way. Actually, I'm going to end up sewing those on. So we'll put that over there. And we're going to go over how to do flying geese again, just in case you need a refresher. So we start with our rectangle and a gray square. This is just a rectangle. You're going to put a square on the one side. It does not matter which side you put it on, but I do recommend you're going to sew across this diagonal. I'm going to use a Clearly Perfect angle on my sewing machine. I will link the video below on this tool. I love using it because you do not need to mark your squares. But you could sew, you're going to sew across this diagonal. Let me show you what the diagonal looks like because it's hard to see because I used the gray. You could sew through your machine this way, or you could sew through your machine this way. This is your corner. If you sew through the machine this way, you're more likely to chew up that corner. So I do recommend, whenever possible, to start a diagonal in the center and work out. You'll have neater and cleaner corners. So that's just a little tip. We sewed on this triangle, and then we're going to flip this open, and that'll be the first half. You're going to want to press this half here, and then you need to trim away the background, and you can either just trim out the insert at a 1/4 inch seam, so you'd end up with that, or you could get rid of both pieces and have a nice background. I recommend, if you are confident with your flip and sew, to just get rid of the bulk, get rid of both layers. But if you're new to this and this is your first time, you may want to get rid of just that middle piece, and then when this flips out, if for some reason it's not even, when you go to piece this in place, you would use the red fabric as your guide and not the flipped out triangle. That's totally up to you, but whichever way you do it, I recommend you do it throughout the project that way. Once you've done this and you've got this pressed open, you have to iron this open. Then you can put your other square on and sew from point to point. Again, you could start this way, but I recommend this way, and you just flip that guy out, and that will get you both half square or both flying geese. So now that I have all my flying geese done, then we're going to sew them end to end, following the pattern, just like that. And then we're going to sew these out. On the top and bottom borders, you do need to add a 2.5 inch square on each end to finish those. The side borders are just flying geese. So I'm going to go ahead and sew those on the block so you can see what that looks like. So here is the smile block with the borders. I got strings everywhere. I'm going to give you one really quick tip. If when you go to put your borders on, they seem a little longer than the block, that means these seams need to be tightened up. You just need to stitch a little bit wider seam, and that will pull that border in just a hair. If you do just a little bit on each one of these 5, you'll be amazed how tight it gets. That does happen sometimes if you're not super accurate with your flying geese. You'll also notice I pressed these seams between the flying geese open. Those are all open, except for the one I caught. And then for this, when I put the borders on, I always pressed towards the block. It'll make it lay nice and flat for when you quilt it later on. So there is our smile block all finished and ready to go. And now that that is done, we can move on to the project roll. Normally, if you're new here, I go really quick through the blocks because a lot of this has been covered in previous videos. We are on month 9. Again, you can go through flying geese. We've done them multiple times, multiple ways, and most of these have applique. Anything with applique, I'm referring you back to video 1 because that's really where I covered every step on doing your applique. So, and all of these are nicely laid out on the YouTube channel on the homepage under a playlist. So you can actually just play right through the whole thing. And again, you can buy just 1 month for the projects, or you can buy the entire block of the month series. The club is all about getting these threads. This is what you're paying for, is 3 Aurifil 50 weight large spools of thread that retails normally in the 50s. I think it's like $54 for 3 of these. And then my pattern is the bonus piece that goes on it so that you can do something with your different threads. I curated all the colors to work together and to work in a thread library. And all that's info below. So now that we've got our block done, let's go ahead and do our bonus project, which I know is why you're really all here. So this is what it looks like. Okay, it's an artist roll that I've now made into a notions roll. And this is how it looks. I even put some little snaps on it to keep it. And then you can make sure that's locked. You can put your rotary cutter in this way. You can put it in this way. If you have a straight cutter, you can slide that in here. How you divide up these pockets, which we'll get to when we get to that part, decides what you're going to want to put in here. If you just want to put skinny things, you can put more divider lines. That's what an artist roll is. You put all your paint brushes or all your pencils in it, you roll it up and throw it in your bag. It's just a nicer way to do it. So what else can I shove in here? I've got these guys here. You know, and then I had a pair of scissors out here. I stole them for I'm taking a weaving class. I stole them for the weaving class. Let me grab another pair. These will work. Those can go there. And then you close this up and you snap it so it doesn't get askewed as you roll it. And then you just roll her up, wrap it around, tie it. I'm off screen. Tie it up, and then you are ready to throw this in your bag and take it to quilting class. And then when you get to class or quilt camp or wherever you're going, you just unroll it, flip this open with the snaps, and you've got all your tools ready to go. How cool is that? One of my favorite things to make. So we've got this all made up, and now I'm going to show you how to make one. So let me pull all my little gadgets back out of here so that we're not like constantly. Okay. So we're just going to set this aside so if we need it for reference, we have it. But here we go. I've already pre-cut all the pieces. You'll just cut the pieces as they're listed in the pattern. You will need a piece of fusible fleece, batting. I don't think bag foam will work. I think it'll make it too thick, but this is just a thin piece of fusible fleece just to give it a little body. Then we've got, let's see here, we've got our back piece. This is the piece that goes back here behind the pockets. This measures 10 by 15 when finished. So there's the back piece. There's our batting piece. And then our front is made up of piecing. We're going to sew these strips together. So these are your ties, which are these guys right here. And this is the interior or the exterior of the flap. These are for the front. We've got our, these are 1 inch, these are 2 inch. And then this is the interior of the flap. And then these two guys are the pocket at the bottom. So those are all my pieces I need. So the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna piece your front. So let's look at the front here. These are just stitched lines. You're gonna piece, it's gonna go red, gray, all the way up, and you're gonna end, you'll end with the gray strip. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these sewn together, and then I'll come back and we'll be ready to do the next step. All right, so we have the front piece all sewn together, and it should be red to gray because then when we put the flap on, that'll be the next red. So it just continues going up as we go. So I've got that done, and what I did is I pressed everything towards the gray to kind of make those gray stripes sort of pop forward. And so that's what's there. Once you've got your front piece sewn together, you need to trim this to measure 15.5. The reason I did that was because I don't always make my ends perfect, and I thought if we squared it up, we would be better at being more accurate versus trying to sew it accurately. So first things first is I'm gonna just square off this end because we know we have a 1/2 inch to play with. So I'm gonna square up that end just a little. And then we're gonna turn this around. I'm gonna set my ruler at the 15.5 inch mark and square up this side. Now my front will match my back when we go to assemble it later. Then I chose on this one, I just drew straight lines. I think they were, let's get a ruler, I can't remember. I started at 1.5 in the middle. So there was my middle, so 3/4 to make that. And then I did 1, 1.5, 1, 1.5, 1. So you can decorate it, you can stitch it however you want. So I just did that on this one. And you would stitch that on here now, not after we put it together, otherwise it'll come through to the back, which unless you want that look, you could do that. But this one I could do a squiggly on it, but I think I'm just gonna leave this one plain. This one will be plain, that one will be decorated. So we have this, and then the next step is we need to make our flap. So we're just gonna set this aside for a minute. And we have our, let's see here, these are the interior, the strips. There we go, that's the pocket. So for the flap, this piece here, we have a gray and a red, and you'll notice that the corners are radiused. That just makes it a little cleaner when we close it so it doesn't get in our way. So on page 8 of your pattern is the Notion Roll corner template. If you have a circle template, you could use that. You can trace this guy, or you can cut it out of your pattern. It's totally up to you. Some people do not want to cut their patterns, and I do not blame them. And just make sure that the 1 inch square for scale is correct. I have lots of these patterns, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this out on the drawn line. And then you're going to want to trace this on your corners. So, and we're going to need scissors. Let me get I have a whole drawer of things here, but you know, oh, there it is. I used it as a demo to put in the packet. All right, so what you want to do is first things first is you want to align these together so that the edges are together. And if you cut one a little short, it's not the end of the world because we're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You're going to take your little circle, your little template, and you're going to align it with the side and the top. And you're just going to draw a line. I recommend a washout pencil or friction pencil or something. But again, you're going to sew it, so it's not really going to matter. You could use any kind of pencil. And then over here, we're just going to rotate it side, top. It's the same radius. Doesn't matter that I turned the template. If you really freaks you out to do this, you could just flip this over and use the back side. It doesn't matter. So we're going to draw those out. And then we're going to take some scissors and cut on the line. Now these are my paper scissors and they do not want to cut. I know, it's a sewing studio. You'd think I'd have scissors everywhere. There, we'll just get rid of it that way. But you can see when you have dull scissors, it really rips the fabric, doesn't cut them. So you do need sharp scissors for fabric. There we go. That one's much better. We'll show you the good side. There it is. So now we have our radius edges on each side. We're going to take this over to the sewing machine. Get rid of all my junk. We're going to take this is the flap. We're going to take it over. We're going to sew a 1/4 inch up each side and across where that radius is. Leave this open. Okay, that's going to make our flap. For the pocket, we're going to jump ahead here because I'm going to go to the sewing machine. You have 2 gray pieces and you just need to put them right sides together if you have a print, and you're just going to sew across the top. Then we're going to flip this open and press it so that we create this folded edge, finished edge at the top, and our pocket is lined. So I'm going to go sew those, and then let me think what else I can sew while I'm over there. We're going to put those over there. Then, well, it's not sewing, but this guy, we're going to take our lining, we're going to give it a nice good press, and we're going to press it to the fusible fleece. So we're going to do 3 things. Sew our flap, sew our pocket, and press this down. And then I'll be back. I've gone ahead and pressed the fusible fleece onto the lining piece. I have sewn my 2 curved pocket pieces together, leaving this part open. And I have sewn my 2 pocket pieces together. We're going to do this. I worked on the straps too, but I'll show you that in a minute. All right, so the first thing we need to do, lining piece is done. Front piece is done. We're going to put these aside. Next, pocket piece. We have now sewn it. We need to turn it. Those curves are very gentle. If you so feel the need to clip them, go for it. As you can see, I am not. But I am going to use a little pokey thing just to run along those seams. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my top stitch foot, or if you have a foot that'll let you do a nice top stitch, I'm going to press this flat, and to press it, I'm going to use the tool to smooth it and press as I go. So I just stick this in with my iron and just smooth it out. Once this is pressed, I'm going to go ahead and take it over to my machine and use a top stitch foot, and I'm switching to the dark red thread to top stitch the flap. So that's all we're going to do here until I can top stitch it. Then for the pocket, we had the 2 pieces we did together. I'm going to press this to one side first, and then I'm going to flip it over and press it there. And then I'm going to run a top stitch there. Now everything in top stitch will be in the red thread to give us a little bit of contrast. You can see that here. I just like that it carried the red from here down into the pocket. So we're going to top stitch the flap, top stitch the pocket. Now the next thing we need to do are our ties, and so you have your strips, and I've gone ahead and folded this one right away, but I'm going to show you how to fold it. First you have to fold in one short end, about 1/4 inch, and then you fold the strip in half and press it, and then you open it back up, and then you fold in each raw edge to that center line and press those, and then you roll this over and press this. That's going to give you a finished on one end and 2 edges for the tie. This edge is raw. We don't care about this edge because it's going to get lined up into the seam and we're not going to see it. Once you have both of those folded, then you're going to go over to your sewing machine. You're going to start on, let's focus here, girls. You're going to start here on the edge, the raw edge. You're going to stitch down. You will stitch across the short edge and then back down the other side. That will give you a nice flat tie. If you only stitch down the two edges folded together and not the other side, your tie will tend to twist. So you do need to stitch down both. So I'm going to go ahead and do all of my top stitching again in red, and then I'm coming back and we're ready to assemble our piece. Okay, so we have our front, we have our lining piece, we have our two straps all top stitched and ready to go. I should call them ties. This is our flap, the inside and the outside, and here is our pocket. So we're ready to start assembling our notions roll. So first things first, we're going to put this aside for a second. We are going to put the pocket on here, onto our background piece. Now this is where you're going to decide how big to measure your pockets. If you want to do your own custom pockets, what you can do is you can just lay your piece on there and say, okay, I need to leave a little room, so I'm going to do a pocket there. And then like for the rotary cutter, I wanted to balance the wider things on the outside, so the rotary cutter could go here, and then I put my middle pockets in the middle. You don't really want to put this right in the middle because then the roll kind of doesn't like having the big heavy thing in the middle. So heavier things on the outside, thinner things on the inside, or you could just do all marker, you know, pen ones and have skinnier pockets. It's totally up to you how you divvy up your pockets, but you do need to do this before we add this. In the pattern is a diagram somewhere. I know because I created it right there. There's the diagram, and it gives you what we did for pockets. You are welcome to use that or change it up however you want. Just again, remember, right in the middle, you got to look at how is this going to roll. You know, so dead center could be a wider pocket, but I do like to keep the wider stuff on the outer edge so it rolls a little nicer. Totally up to you. You can put pins in, test it, roll it, then do your lines. I usually just lay these on and go, okay, this is where I want my lines. But for today, we're going to mark the pockets the way I said to mark them in the pattern, because why wouldn't we follow the pattern? All right, so first things first is get yourself a washout pen or pencil. Get yourself a ruler, but don't use a big long ruler. It's too much acrylic to be dealing with. Just grab a little small square ruler, and then I'm going right on the edge of the pocket. Well, first things first, I'm gonna line this up. So obviously you could mark your pockets and then put them on here, but it's on here, so we're gonna line it up. So the first pocket is a 4-inch pocket, and then we're gonna do a 1.5-inch pocket. It's always good to start in the center and go up and down rather than try to do it on the end. Then we've got two 1-inch pockets. 1, 2. And I'm sorry, you're going to get a reflection right there. Then I did a 2-inch pocket for something a little bit wider. And then 2 more 1 inches. 1, 2, and then the last pocket ends up being a 4-inch pocket. So 2 4 inches, then we did 1.5, 1 1, 2 1 1. That's plenty of pockets. They don't have to balance, they don't have to be symmetrical. Unless you're one of those symmetrical type of people, then you can adjust how you want. So now that I have this here, I'm going to grab my Wonder Clips, and I'm going to use Wonder Clips to clip the pocket in place. And then I'm going to go over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew down each of these lines, and I'm going to use an 1/8 inch seam allowance to sew the pocket itself to the bottom of this interior. So there, now you can see I've got all my pocket dividers. My things will fit in my pockets, and I can test them out and I can adjust them at this point, but this is how the pockets are. And I used my top stitch foot. Oops, I used my top stitch foot to top stitch this onto the back, onto this piece. If you don't totally catch it, it's fine. It's just enough to kind of hold it in place while we assemble the rest of the roll. So now that we have this done, we are ready to assemble. So what we're gonna do is, first things first, is we're gonna take our 2 ties and we're going to attach them right above the pocket. inside here. And I have a string. Let's get rid of that string. And I'm just kind of stacking them on top of each other. You can see here, you know, I didn't put them like directly on top. You can, it doesn't bother it. You could do however you'd like to get them there. They need to be on top of each other and not next to each other. And I'm going to clip that in place. Then I'm going to take my straps and I'm going to roll them up and I'm going to put another clip on here. That's going to keep them outside of my seam allowance and get me, keep me from getting into any kind of trouble. That can just sit right there. Totally fine. Next up is the flap. Now the flap, we have the gray side on the inside. Oops. Oops. I'm trying to show you something. And you want to do it so the red is on the outside so that it continues our pattern. So we'll put that aside for now. But this is gray side in, and you want to center the flap onto the piece. Your flap will be smaller than your piece. It's right there. You're gonna have a 1/4 inch hopefully on either side. So we're gonna just put this here, lining the edges, and we're gonna put that flap right on there. Okay. And then I like to give myself some insurance. You need to catch the flap up here. So I'm actually going to put the clips right on the end. Move you over there. But I do like to tuck this up under the clip so I don't catch this again in my seam allowance. The most important place to catch the whole flap is in that seam. You don't want it at all in your side seams. So that is like just a little tip to make sure you don't catch it anywhere. So if you clip everything out of the way, you should be fine. Then it's time to put the front on, and we're going to put them right sides together. And again, gray at the top, red at the bottom. And we're going to clip all this together, making sure we don't lose what we clipped underneath. And then we're going to take this over to the sewing machine, and we are going to start here at the bottom, leave a 4-inch opening. We're going to stitch around, stop here, and we'll have an opening for turning. And if this looks like it's too short, just pull it down. It's because there's bulk in here. So you just kind of pull it down and clip it, and it'll line up for you. I've done all the math. The math is right. We're good. Don't panic. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this, and then I'll bring it back over here, and we're going to turn it. We're going to do one more top stitch and we will be done with our notion roll. All right, so we've got this sewn. I left an opening at the bottom, and I did do a straight stitch down right here and here. I had a friend who taught me this in Atlanta, Jan. Hi. And this makes it easier when you turn it to turn that edge in and press it flat. It'll align it better. She showed me that trick in June, and I have been using it ever since, and a good trick's a good trick, so we're going to share it. All right, we're ready to turn it. So when you turn it, I could have left myself a little more room. It's not like I'm going to hand sew this, but apparently I got a little crazy there. So we're going to slowly turn this right side out. Now you could clip your corners. There's not a lot of corner there. But we're going to turn it out first to make sure we caught everything in the seams, because there's a lot of stuff going in those seams. If you're nervous about that, you could baste the ties on, baste the flap on, and then put it all together. But I'm a professional, so I did it all at once. All right, so we've got that. And now you'll see when I turn it that the flap matches the edges, because the flap already had its 1/4 inch seam allowance taken up when we sewed the flap. And now it matches this because we've taken up that one. So I'm going to get my little pokey stick. You got to use a straw, a chopstick, not a stiletto. They're too sharp, a purple thing. And you really want to make sure you've got those corners popped out really well. As you can see here, that looks good. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over and I'm going to press this. I'm going to give it a good pressing, turning in that edge that we need to, this edge where my hand is. But first, let's see how we do. We've got our flap, looks lovely. We've got our ties that didn't get caught in the seam. So that's great. So all we've got left to do is we got to turn this edge inside. And then I'm going to go over, I'm going to do one more top stitch. The top stitch is just the pouch itself, not the flap. The flap already has a top stitch. We are just going to top stitch this bottom rectangle. Couple tips is when I did the ties, I reverse stitched over them once or twice because this is going to get the most pull, and then when we top stitch it, we're securing it even more. And again, you can see with those little stay stitches how easily this popped in and looks nice and even. But we're going to press it and make sure it's all flat, and then our roll will be ready. So I'll be right back. All right, we've got it finished. So here it is. I've sewn it, turned it, and I top stitched it. Now the other thing I did off camera was I sewed the snaps on. Those are in the directions. And the reason you want to put the snaps on here is so that it kind of holds the flap in place as you roll it. All I did is I sewed them onto the top, and I only sew them through the one layer. So you just go in and out of the gray, don't go through the red. Same thing here, I didn't go all the way through. And then I sewed them here. I brought this down, I used a marker, and I just kind of marked where it was. It doesn't have to be exact in this case, so you know, close is good. And now that's all ready to go. So what we can do is we can load all our stuff in here. Make sure you lock this. You can put it in either way. I think we'll do it this way today. And you can slide your tools in here just like so. And then we are ready to roll this puppy up and go. So we got all our stuff in there. You just flip this down and snap it here and snap it here. And then you can take it and you just sort of roll it up like so. And then you just take one tie and bring it around and tie it, and we're ready. So this is like a really nice thing to have for your notions, especially if you're just like going to a class or something, you don't want to lose your stuff. But there we go. That's the notion roll. All right, so wrap up. We've got our notion roll done, and we've got block 9 done for the Imagine quilt. We've got 3 more to go, and we can start putting our quilt together. I hope you've enjoyed following along as we do this. Again, this is this month's beautiful color range. We've got 2615, 2260, and 1100. I love this raspberry. It is so yummy. These are all 50 weight threads from Aurifil. They work great with the project and with the notion roll. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Leave me a comment below. Let me know if you've done any of the projects in the Imagine program. Like again, this is project number 9. We've got 3 more projects and 3 more blocks to go. And so until next time, thanks for watching.